Welcome to the Real Aesthetic Podcast, a real deal on like aesthetics and stuff.
Oh, we've been rolling this whole time.
He was my gopher.
I'm your host, Alexis Arsenis. We're going to have a good time here. Welcome back to the Real Aesthetic Podcast, a show where we dive deep into the world of aesthetics, health and wellness, and business. I'm your host, Alexis Arsenis. Behind the cameras are two amazing producers, Nick and Max. And today we have a special friend of mine, an awesome businesswoman, truly someone I admire, Miss Mari Leckel.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. It's beautiful here.
Thank you.
And I'm excited for your podcast to launch.
Friday.
Friday coming up.
Yeah, November
Amazing.
1st. Where's our
wait.
first one? So I'm like,
Congrats.
thank you. So for those that don't know how amazing you are, Mari is, I would say, one of the most prestigious doulas in New England. I think I would say the U.S., but I mean New England.
Thank you.
She was my doula trainer, so I learned everything I know from this woman, and she still doulas me daily through life and everything else. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for those kind words. You're amazing yourself, my friend.
you.
And so my name's Mari Leckel. My full name is Maria Elena Sanchez Leckel, but it never fits on the line, so we just cut it up.
I love it though. It's so spicy. It fits your personality perfect.
It's so spicy. And then at the end, I married a German and Scottish boy, so that's where the Leckel comes from. But yeah, so my name's Mari. I'm actually the owner of Boston Birth Associates. We're a full-service doula agency here in New England. We cover families in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, parts of Maine, Rhode Island. So I'm a certified labor and postpartum doula, lactation counselor, Reiki master teacher, childbirth educator, prenatal yoga teacher, car seat safety technician. The list kind of goes.
The list just keeps going.
Yeah, it just goes. I have a lot of hats on my head, if you will. And I've been a doula for 11 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I do full time. I love it. I have the most amazing, incredible doula team. And we support families to try and educate, empower, and help them in the transition when they bring their baby home so that they can thrive in new parenthood. Babies don't come home with directions.
No.
They just, you have your baby and they're like, good luck with that. Bye. And then you go home and you're like, what do I do with this thing? Keep it alive.
I was one of those.
Keep it alive, people. That's what you do.
They're pretty resilient, I would say.
They're very resilient.
But for people that don't know what a doula is, because I feel like although doulas have been around forever, I feel like people either they don't know what a doula is or they kind of get it mixed up with like a midwife.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people still don't know what a doula is. So a doula is someone who is trained in the anatomy and physiology of labor and birth and the postpartum period. And basically, I equate it to, think about when someone hires a wedding planner for their wedding. That's what I am for your birth.
I use that line too.
Yeah, it's so good because then people can understand like, oh, okay, that's what it is. A lot of people say, oh, you're a doula, you're like a midwife. And actually a midwife is totally different than what I do. Doulas are non-medical, but we are trained in medical terminology and anatomy where we work in conjunction with the midwife and the OBGYNs. A lot of people, when I first heard of a doula before I was a doula, I equated it to just home birth, unmedicated. I had no idea. The majority of my clients are having babies in hospitals. So we're like a coach. I say we're your Google. Don't Google things. We're your 24/7 Google. We are there to help with the transition. And also a lot of people are anxious when they're having a baby, like all of the unknowns. No one tells you everything about how you're really going to go through this journey. And so that's what doulas do. We come in and we're that safe space, we're that education, we're all the things for you.
I think that people don't know that you have, like, informed consent is one of those like tricky, slippery slopes, I feel like,
For sure.
at a hospital, because I feel like they give you the information, but maybe not all the information that you could use to make a proper informed decision.
Exactly. I love that you said that because, you know, I always say to people, it isn't about, for me and my team, it's not about how the baby comes out of your body.
Yeah.
Like if you tell me you want certain things, your goals, your wishes, your preferences, great. We're going to do everything we can to meet those. But it's not about how the baby comes out of your body. It's actually about how did you feel the day you met your baby? Did you feel empowered? Did you feel loved? Did you feel supported?
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were part of the process instead of the process being done to you? That's
Yeah.
where that informed consent comes in. And one of the big things we do as doulas, in the room, we're with you.
Yeah.
And so when things are happening, I teach this in my childbirth education classes, and people don't know this unless you take my class or you have doula support.
Yeah.
Um, you have time when someone comes in the room in your labor and they're talking, talking always equals time. Talking equals time, which means if you've got us in the room, we can say, actually, can we have 5 minutes to talk about that? The first priority is, are you okay? Is the baby okay? The answer is yes, yes. There's always time. And we use the acronym BRAIN. There's always time to use your brain. I feel like we could use this in life every day. There's always time to use your brain. So B, what are the benefits of what they're presenting? So what are the benefits if we do that in this moment? R, what are the risks? There's
Mhm.
risk. A, what's the alternative? What can I do instead? And then I, what does my intuition tell me? We all have intuition for a reason. We're going to listen to
Mhm.
that. And then N in brain, what happens if we say no, not right now? Again, is everybody okay and healthy? Yes. How about we revisit this
Yeah.
conversation in an hour or two? You have time to be part of your process of your birth
Yeah.
and make decisions that are best for you, that are informed. And
Yeah.
so you can give your consent.
I love that, and I think that more people need that. They need to have this informed consent, and truthfully, when I had my kids, I didn't even know about doulas, which is really weird because
Yeah.
now, like, my next baby's gonna be a breeze. Like, it's gonna be so much
Exactly.
easier. But I feel like the system is so systematic.
For sure.
Birth is truly a business, and I know you and I talk
Yeah.
about this all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, the hospital's gotta keep its lights on,
Yeah.
you know?
They gotta get them
So
in, they gotta get them out.
and I feel like when you get pregnant and you go to an OB, it's very just like systematic approach. Hey, are you okay? Okay, cool. Baby's good. Okay, bye. See you later.
Yeah.
And there's no like, could I be doing this better? What food should I eat? Like people
Yeah.
are relying on TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, and all this shit
Right.
when you could have someone that knows this information. So you're
Exactly.
not Googling and you're not doing those things. I think it's a disservice that these OBs don't have like a partnership
Yeah.
with doulas because essentially it makes their job easier.
Exactly. Absolutely.
At least I
When
would
we
think.
walk in the hospital and the nurse sees the family has a doula, they're like, "Oh, I love when you guys are here." Now, listen, not all doulas are created equally, but they'll say that
Yeah.
because it does help them. It makes their job easier. They have a lot of charting to do, they have a whole checklist of things they need to do.
Yeah.
We're working with the doctors, we're part of the team. So, yeah, you're right. Like, this should be something that providers say at every prenatal. Hey, you should look into getting a doula.
I think that would be amazing. But unfortunately, I think we live in a space where asking too many questions is not what they want to deal with.
Yeah, right.
Especially, I think now, the height of like vaccines being
Yeah.
something that's like blowing
Oh,
up
yeah, hot topic,
everywhere.
yeah.
I think people like what they feed their babies, formulas blowing up right
Yeah.
now. I just had a rep come in and tell me that I was actually talking to Eric about this. I don't know if she
Mhm.
told you.
Yeah, she did.
Someone was telling me that they got recalled on a bunch of formulas
Yeah,
and it got bought out. And I was like, well, are we going to get a list, like a lot
right.
number? Like,
Yeah,
there's just so many questions I feel like
yeah.
happen, and having a doula would be so beneficial so you can like get those answers.
Exactly. And, like when it comes to that, one of the things that we help families with is, for example, if someone is using powdered formula, what a lot of people don't know is that there's something in it called a chronobacter. It's a bacteria that can be really serious to babies. And so you have to, you know, prepare it in a certain way. You have to boil water, then you have to cool it to a certain temperature. Then you make the batch of powdered formula. Like these are things that
I didn't
they're
even know that.
yeah, I just recently learned this. And that is a recommendation from the FDA to boil the water because of the chronobacter bacteria. It's like, wait, what? What is in there?
Okay, how many women do we know that just, like,
Nobody knows
they
this.
friggin' first of all, they microwave it in a plastic bottle,
Yeah,
which I'm
please
like,
don't do that.
"Don't," that you but you do,
But
like,
you
I
do.
know you do. Um, and now, like, the baby Breeza, like,
Yes.
all these, like, Keurig type
Yeah.
apparatuses that they have, I mean, I don't think they get the water to that temperature.
They don't, and sometimes it's not exact. So it's really important, especially if you're giving your baby formula, that there's an exact measurement because if it's not, it can be detrimental to the baby. So like all these things come into play. And again, like families don't know this, especially if this is your first baby. You have no
Mhm.
idea. Get a doula. Your doula is like your class in your back pocket, your Google in your back pocket. And like you said earlier, like providers don't have time to sit and go over it. They
Yeah,
can't
no.
spend a half hour with you in the appointments. A lot of my clients will say, I went to my appointment. I just walked in and they were like, yep, everything's good. Blood pressure. Here's your next appointment.
Well, because 'cause they're not paid for outcomes. Doctors are paid on, like, how many patients they can see
Right.
within that hour,
Yeah.
right? So they're paid on how many people they can see, what they can bill, and go from there.
Yeah.
So you go into those appointments, I would say a lot of the times, like, they're not, like, essential in
Right.
my mind,
Yeah.
looking back at it now. I mean, you're there for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I own an ultrasound, like, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
heartbeat's fine. Like, we don't even need
Exactly.
to
Just
see
go see
you.
Alexis. You're,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I am not a medical
No, but she's
provider.
non-medical, but
Yeah, I'm
also
not a
see your
medical.
provider.
Yeah. Disclaimer, not
Yeah,
medical. See your
exactly.
provider, but, like, if you need a heartbeat check at, like,
Yeah,
3 AM and you don't wanna go to the ER, like,
right.
I got you.
And if you need someone to talk on a Saturday night because 'cause you're freaking out about this
Yeah.
weird sensation in my left hip, then call your doula, call me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like, I mean, I get a lot of weird calls now because I feel like when I first did my doula training with you, I was so eager and like doula, I think it's like hard to pick up at first, like
yeah,
clients, because it's kind of like that weird conversation.
exactly.
And lately for me, it's like been picking up and like even situations, I'm texting you. I'm like, dude, what do I do? Like,
Well,
I've
doulas
never ran
need
into
doulas.
this.
Yeah,
Like,
we need each
because
other.
even though you get all the training, I feel like it's not, you're
Listen,
always learning.
you're always learning. I've been doing this 11 and a half years. I personally have been to over 1,000 births.
That's
It is
crazy.
crazy when I say it out loud. I'm like, wait, what? And
How do you
I'm
keep
still
track?
learning. Well, I stopped counting. I average how many a year. It's like 100 a year or 80 to 100 a year. I'm
That's insane.
definitely over 1,000. Um, because,
That's crazy.
my first year doing this, I was a solo doula. So it's just me, myself, and me, which is a lot of work. You as a business owner know.
I only take one birth a month. And when mine almost overlapped, I was calling her with pure
Yeah,
anxiety the whole
exactly. I was like,
time.
I need you to take a deep breath. Like,
So
breathe in, breathe
I'm like, "What
out.
do I do? What do I do?"
Yeah. But, I was doing this by myself, and sometimes I take 10 births a month. Like anyone listening that's a new doula, don't do that. Don't learn from my mistakes. That's too much. You'll burn out. You won't be doing this for over a decade like I have.
Yeah.
But, and it's interesting because before I did this work, I actually worked in law enforcement for
I
a
know, you
very
were like
long
a
time.
cop.
I worked for the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and
What a change in scenery, huh?
it's so
Inmate's
insane.
baby, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's, like, so crazy, and then I was a probation officer, and then so I would, like, have a baby on a Saturday and then, like, do violation of probation hearings during the week, have people locked up. It's, like, fine, yeah, but it's, like, so weird now that I think about it, but then it started to grow organically, this
Mhm.
doula, I had no idea it could be a profession, a career, but it can be. And then I was just getting busier and busier. Providers were learning who Mari Leckel, the doula, was and
Yeah.
sending me their patients and really enjoyed working with me. And I had no idea I would have an agency. I just knew I couldn't do it all.
Mhm.
And, it takes a while to get a business going. As you know,
Yeah.
as a business owner, it's a lot of work on the back end. We're doing everything. We work 7 days a week. We
Yeah.
work like 24/7, and but if it's something that you are passionate about, which I am, because I really think it's important that families know their options, know their
Yeah.
choices, and be part of the process. I have a huge passion for that, and I'll do this until I can't do it anymore. And I always say I'll
Yeah.
do it till I'm old and gray, and I am gray, but Frankie, he's amazing, and he does my hair. Shout out to Frankie. Frankie does good hair. That's his
Is that
handle.
his handle?
Yeah,
Where is he at?
he's in North Andover.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he covers my gray, but I will do this until I can't do it
Yeah,
anymore.
you're not retiring.
No, it's so important. It's
Yeah,
important.
and I think that people don't like I can't take on more doula clients like with my
No,
schedule
you
and what I do. So
can't.
I send everyone essentially to you. There's like a
Yeah.
few that I'm like, I feel bad, like I'll take her.
Yeah.
Like this one I have now, like I love her. Their family's so cute. They're Greek. I somehow know their family. I don't even know. Us Greeks, like, we're all related. I don't
Yeah.
know. So like my yaya used to make cookies with his yaya. I
That's
don't know.
crazy.
Yeah, but it's wild.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
I I send everyone to you because I know, like, they're gonna be fine. Like, they're
We
gonna be
take good
taken
care
care
of
of.
them,
But
yeah.
I see so many people that come to me for ultrasound that don't or they can't afford or they don't have a doula,
Yeah,
and they're, like, so lost. And I
yeah,
think a lot of these new doulas, the biggest problem is, like, we feel bad,
yeah,
and you start doulaing without being paid,
exactly.
and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, like, you can't do that over and over. It's not sustainable for
No.
you. It is not also, what message is that sending to families looking for doulas?
Yeah, you can
It's
just get it free.
yeah, like, no, we are a profession. This is what I do. I'm a two-income household, and I contribute to my household doing doula work full time. Um, and so, yeah, there's this still education about people that need to know about doulas, but we've got to charge you. You're worth it. You are enough.
Yeah.
And this is a profession.
I think that people also, like, they just don't get it. Like, they think it's
Yeah.
a home birth. They think it's, like, all this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, like, I don't know, you know how I feel. Right now, I'm, like, ready to have a baby on my friggin' porch in a
Correct.
pool,
Yeah.
which is
With the ducks and
yeah,
the goats, and I'll be there. It's fine.
I'm honestly
And so
scared.
will a midwife.
I know. I'm scared, though. Like, I mean, I guess, like, I'm scared because 'cause I've had 2 C-sections.
Yeah,
So
of
most people
course.
know, like, if you've had multiple
Yeah.
C-sections, generally, they want you to have more C-sections
Correct.
because of your uterine wall being a little bit thinner, so
Right.
you're risking rupture, but I feel like if it ruptured in the hospital, you rupture at home, at the end of the day, as long as you have, like, a midwife there or someone to get you to an OR, you're already
Yeah.
done having kids at that point no matter what.
Exactly. But here's the thing too, it's like also what people don't know is just because you have one C-section or even two, it doesn't mean that you can't try for what's called a VBAC, a vaginal birth after cesarean.
Yeah.
You can, I've seen it. It's happened to my
I
clients.
feel like a lot of OBs don't wanna talk about that.
Yeah,
Like,
because
they're
it's
like
easier to schedule a C-section,
it
put it on the
is.
schedule.
So, how do you feel about I know people are now, like, listening to, like, TikToks and Instagrams and all these
Mhm.
things, and how they, like, sell your placenta and, like,
Oh,
for 50
yeah.
grand.
Yes,
Like,
I've seen this.
what do clients say to you about
Yowzer.
that? Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy, and the clients that want to keep their placenta are, like, they're just finding out about something called placenta encapsulation, and that's
Yeah.
something that people do. But yeah, someone was telling me about this
Yeah.
$50,000.
But then you have to charge my insurance?
Yeah, like,
Like, you have a copay? Like, I feel like you just made 50 grand off me. Can we knock 50 grand off the bill?
yeah, it's
Like,
so
I don't know.
I'm not sure what's happening in the placenta world, but
Like, what are you doing?
yeah.
How do you feel about placenta encapsulation? I'm kinda like, "Eh," about
I
it.
know, and a lot of people are. And listen, here's the thing about placenta encapsulation. We do offer it. We have resources for it because some people want it. When you look at animals in the wild, they eat their placenta after they have a baby. So maybe they know something. I don't know. Here's the thing with it. When we look at, is there a lot of research on placenta encapsulation?
Mhm.
No, because no one's going to put money into a
Yeah.
study for that. Over the last decade, have I seen people who have had a baby, didn't do placenta encapsulation the first time, did placenta encapsulation the second time, and reported feeling overall better, healing sooner, better milk production? Yeah, that's a thing. Um, and it's made up from your own body.
Mhm.
There's a process that is done. It's dehydrated and then it's given to you in like a little herbal pill. It looks like a herbal pill. It's like a
Yeah,
powder.
it's not like you're, like, putting it in a
No,
blender and drinking it.
no, no.
Have you ever had someone say that? Like, literally
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
no.
of course. Yes. I've seen
What?
everything and heard everything. Um,
I haven't had a client say that to me.
yeah, I had one client who the dad was like, "Yeah, we're going to bring it home and I'll figure out what to do with it." And I was like, "Okay."
So, like, the second it comes out, like, it's essentially dying,
I
it de
mean,
just
you put it
decaying.
on ice. That's
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
do.
but still, like, I mean, What are we just slap it on the grill?
I
A
just
little barbecue sauce? Like, what are you doing? Like,
No, thank you. Yeah, no, that's not for me, but no judgment. Doulas are non-judgmental. I don't
yeah.
judge you for
I think that that's the hard part for me and maybe many doulas. And it's not because I'm
Yeah.
being judgmental. I think that like I doula people who like I like to doula.
Yeah, of
Do you know what I mean?
course.
And I think the cool thing about like how you have such a large age, how many doulas do you have now? Like
There's
19?
like, yeah, 18
Yeah.
doulas, and I'd
So
like
you
to
have
hire
someone
10
for
more.
everyone.
Yeah,
Like you have someone who's super crunchy, who can take a super crunchy
for
person.
sure. Yeah.
It's cool. You have the people that don't like same-sex couples
Oh,
or
yeah,
like
all the
you
time.
you service everybody.
Yes,
And like
exactly.
I have no problem with it. I guess I that sounds terrible when I say it, but I feel like it's it's harder for smaller doulas to like take everyone on if you don't like align because I
Yeah,
feel like
of
that's where your
course,
consultation comes in because
for
if you're not
sure.
really like on the same page,
Yeah.
I feel like how can I
How can
coach
you
you?
yeah, how can I support you? That's the thing, it's like when I said earlier, not all doulas are created equally, what
Yeah.
I meant by that was some are very, "I'm only gonna support clients that have a home birth." And for me, like, no, I
That's a
don't.
huge money thing too. You would lose so much money if you did
Not
that.
only that, because listen, the majority of people are having their baby in a hospital. That is the world we're living in. But for me, if I only decide to support one way, one the people in the hospital need me the most.
Yeah.
So I'm going to support in the hospital, and the majority of my clients are delivering in a hospital. You know, we've had 2 home births this year,
That's so fun.
which is really cool. And but the majority of people are having a baby in the hospital, so they need our support. So some doulas are really set in I only believe in home birth or I only believe in this way. And that's not how doula work should be done. We have to do it in an unbiased, non judgmental way. Like these families need us, they don't have a clue. I didn't have a clue when I was having my kids. I have 2
Yeah.
kids. And I wish I knew about doulas both in the birth space and in the postpartum.
Yeah.
People have no idea how beneficial a postpartum doula is.
Oh, imagine. It's like and a lot of people ask me what it is and I'm like, "Well, I think a lot of people understand what a night nurse is."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Think of that with not spending as much as like a night nurse,
And
but
here
like just as much support. Like they're doing the
Yeah,
same
and
thing."
even more support actually. So,
Yeah.
when we look at like the term night nurse, it's kind of used loosely. And what a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know is they hear this and they think automatically the person is a registered nurse. And they're not always. So they
Oh,
should not,
really?
yes, this is what people don't know. So a lot of times people call themselves a night nurse, but they're not a registered nurse. So, and also night nannies, night nurse, they really focus on just the baby. The postpartum doula, which is what we do, we focus on the entire family. And at the forefront is we have to focus on the person that just had the baby because think about it. Remember when you had your kids,
Yeah.
and I remember people coming over and saying, "How's the baby doing? How's the baby sleeping? How's the baby eating?" What about me who just had the baby, right?
Mhm.
We don't focus on
I
that
say that
person.
all the time. The conversation needs to change from being like, "How's the baby?" to "How are
How
you,
are
mom?"
you?
Like, "Mom,
And
what's
that's
going
what
on?"
we do. Like at the forefront of our support is coming in and saying, "How are you doing today?"
Yeah.
If I had someone come in the door and ask me that, that would have changed my postpartum
Absolutely.
period. So, I mean, I really struggled. And, I share my story because I was not okay, especially
No.
with my youngest. I was not okay.
And you had gone through IVF and
I had
everything,
gone
like
through IVF. My youngest child is the eighth try medically to conceive. We lost twins before her. I'm very open about my story because a lot more people are going through it
yeah.
than are talked about, right? And also, one of the reasons why I do this work, why I'm a birth worker. It was a journey, it was crazy.
Mhm.
And, if I had support, oh my gosh, that would have made
I
a
feel the same way.
difference.
That's exactly why I got into like looking at what a doula was, and then like when I
Hmm.
found your name out, I was such a creep. Oh my god. So I
This is
found out.
so funny.
So I'm like, "Oh my god, I love this idea. I want to be a doula. Let me find a class." So I'm reading all about, and I pop up on Pro Doula, and they're like, "There's a class Friday." I'm like, "Sick." It's like Wednesday,
Yeah.
mind you, or like Tuesday or
Yeah, I
something.
think it was Tuesday.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Okay." And I see the trainer, Mari Leckel. So I put my little put it in, pay the fee, waiting to hear back. Crickets. Hear nothing. They're like, "Oh my god, your book's gonna come in." I'm like, "When?" "It's Friday." So I start freaking out. Called the office, no answer. They called me right back. They were super nice. I love everyone that's over in the Pro Doula office. They're like, "We'll get you a book. Like, don't worry about it." Now I'm freaking out. Like, I need this book. Like, I'm gonna take a class, I'm gonna have no book, like, I
Right.
didn't know what to expect. Are we gonna be in a lecture hall with 10
Right.
people? Like, I didn't know
Yeah.
what to expect. So I find her name and
Wait a minute, tell
I
the people you stalked me.
I
That's what you
I
did.
did I did, I stalked her, and then I found her on Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, my name's Alexis, I'm gonna take your class," and you were like, "What the fuck is this girl doing?"
I was like, "Oh, she's got a lot of energy
Well,
now."
I was just like, "What do I do? Like, can I come with no book?" Like, I didn't know if I could even
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But Pro Doula was so cool. I was, like, all anxious for
Yeah, I was like,
absolutely
"No worries, you
nothing.
don't need that little book right now, so
No.
you'll get it though."
Yeah.
And you did get it.
I was, like, freaking out. But, like, 2 days later, I got it, like, after
Yeah.
the class and, like, that Monday, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I have my
Yeah,
book." I
it's
was, like,
okay.
all nervous. But
Yeah.
that's why I went into doula work too, is because of my experiences with my births, like, I've talked
Yeah.
about this on the show before, is just
Yeah.
it was total chaos.
Yeah.
And, like, a doula work, I really feel the biggest thing for doula work is not only about the mom, but about your partner, the dad,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
because, like,
Partners sometimes need us more.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would feel like in my situation where a baby got wheeled in to Rob, who had never fed a baby in his life, didn't even know how
Mhm.
to hold a baby,
Yeah.
and was just like, "Here you go. Alexis isn't breathing. We're trying to work on her, but here's the baby." Like,
Mhm.
imagine if you were there to be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
what's going on?" And like when I told Rob, I was like, "Next baby Mari's gonna be there," he was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great. Like, I need it for me.
Yeah.
Like, screw you. Like, you know what you're doing." And I was
Yeah,
like, "Yeah,
most of the
whatever."
time partners need us more. And like, that's the other thing that some people will say, "Well, I don't need a doula because I have a partner." And I'm like,
But
"No."
what does he know or
Y-
she know? Like,
yeah,
either way.
like I'm like, "No, they actually need us probably more
Yeah.
than you do." And we're here to support everybody. Because again, like the situation you just described, that was probably really scary for Rob.
Yeah, and it was during COVID, so he was, like,
Yeah.
calling everybody, like
Yeah, and he's sitting there by himself with his tiny little human, like,
yeah,
you know
imagine, like, I can't imagine being him. Also, I was, like I didn't even see her till the next day, so, like,
Ugh,
I didn't even
I'm
know.
so sorry,
But
that's a
I
lot.
think that people don't wanna talk about, like, the trauma that
Yeah,
you can go through in birth,
of
and they
course.
think it's all gonna be like, "My doctor's gonna be there." When 80% of the time, and I think you can agree to this, the
Mhm.
OB that you schedule your
Is not gonna
appointments
be
with
there.
is probably not the OB that's gonna be delivering your baby.
Correct.
Maybe,
Maybe.
but, like, I doubt it.
Yeah.
Neither my OB didn't deliver either of my babies.
Yeah, and that's the thing, my OB didn't deliver my daughters either.
Actually, Sophia, we did, but that was a C-section,
Yeah.
so
Well, yeah, because yeah, that was a scheduled one, right?
yeah, and if I knew now
Of course.
then, I wouldn't have even had it because I walked in at, like, 6.5, 7 centimeters, like, ready
I
to
know,
go,
which is crazy.
and if I knew you, I'd been like, "Alright, like, we can."
I'd be like, "Let's do some hip circles, let's get on the ball, we got
Yeah.
this." Yeah.
Like, people don't like, I didn't know, like, I just thought, like, if you had 1 C-section,
That it was
that
automatic.
it was like, "Oh, it's better for your body," not realizing the recovery of a C-section, I truthfully, like, factual or not, like, in my mind, is
Yeah.
way harder
It's
than
major abdominal surgery.
7 layers.
It's major abdominal surgery. Yeah.
And then they're
So of
like, "Here's a
course.
Tylenol."
Right. And
The hell
also
is that gonna do?
if it's your second baby, you're
Mhm.
trying to take care of your first, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Who was 9 months old at the time?
yeah, hello.
2 under 2, guys.
Yeah, you
I
just
don't
do do
recommend it.
bang them out.
Although now I do.
Yeah,
I think the 2 under 2 is cool now because 'cause they're, like, front I
it's
mean, they
great.
beat the crap out of each other. Like, they're, like, on the
It's like a
floor.
wrestling match.
Yeah,
Like,
but at least
yeah,
they keep each other entertained.
exactly.
That's why I got my
Exactly.
dogs the way I did. Like, when I got Xena and I felt bad, I got her a friend. And now, like, like, I'm the same way with kids, I
Yeah.
guess. There was a clip I wanted to show you because I wanted to get your opinion on it, especially about C-sections, because I feel
Yeah.
like you're just so, like you're like the queen of birth. Like, any
I know
questions,
a
I'm like,
thing or
"What do I
two.
do?"
Yeah. I mean, if I knew what I knew, what I know now,
Yeah.
I mean, it would have changed my preferences for my births. I definitely would have got a doula. I absolutely would have had a postpartum doula.
Yeah.
Most of our postpartum work is overnight care, is making sure that people are getting true quality rest. Because as we know, when we look at the research, if you are not sleeping and you get behind a wheel, it's like you're a drunk driver. Like you cannot function
Yeah.
that way. So, it's so important. There's more education that definitely needs to go out about it. I mean, I didn't really know about postpartum doulas. You hear the word doula, you equate it to birth
Mhm.
automatically. Yeah. So I'm really I'm happy that I get to educate more
Yeah.
people. And honestly, like more people are learning about doulas from social media,
Yep.
from TikTok, from
So it's like a
Instagram.
net positive in some ways, I would
Exactly.
say.
Yeah, and people are, like, finding out there's this thing that they can have
How do you
called
feel
a
about
doula.
virtual doulas?
You know what's funny is that I did virtual work as a doula when
Mhm.
COVID happened because the
Yeah.
world shut down. Doulas were not allowed into
Mhm.
the hospital setting. It was a
Yep.
really scary, unknown time for doulas and for families having babies.
Can you imagine? Like, I mean, I went through it, but
You went
like,
through it. Like my older daughter went through it. Her second was born, March 2020, like the height of it. So, it's something that once it happened, we were so booked with clients having
yeah.
babies, and it was like, okay, now I can't come in the hospital. What am I gonna do? So I had to pivot as a business. I had to be there for the families, and I created virtual doula support.
So did you like Zoom them while they were in like
Yes.
while in labor and like at the hospital?
Yes. So they would go into labor. I would send them a Zoom link.
Okay.
And I would go to either like my living room or I have two locations, like physical locations. I would go to my yoga studio and I would hunker down in the yoga
Yeah.
studio with my laptop, send them a Zoom link. And the nurses were great because they like knew Mari and they knew Boston Birth
Yeah.
Associates. And they would set up the camera on the computer and be like, how's this, Mari? Is this angle good? And they would be laboring and I would coach them as if I was sitting
Yeah.
in the room. If they got an epidural, I would say, okay, guys, I'm going to leave my camera on.
Mhm.
I would lay down with the camera on and then like support like everyone's sleeping. And I'm like, okay, everyone take a nap. Um, when the nurse comes in, I'll hear her. The nurse would come in to talk and I'd wake up. Like I would be there in the pushing phase and I would coach them in the pushing
That's
phase.
so crazy.
Yeah. And then after that, I was virtual doula for another family in Texas who found me on Instagram. So
That's so
it's a
cool.
great thing. I mean, it's like having a virtual coach right there.
So I feel like I think I'm just so I like the physical. Like I
Mhm.
like and obviously COVID it was just a
Yeah.
crazy time.
Yeah.
Um but here's this clip. I want to see like what you feel about this
Now
clip.
you're lying in a bed. Here's what happens. Now you're lying in a bed and your labor slows down, so the hospital speeds up the process by pressuring you to take the drugs that induce labor, even though those drugs affect the heart rate of your baby and increase your pain. So then they suggest an epidural, where they jam a needle of fentanyl into your spine to numb your lower body, but now you can't feel your lower body, which means you can't help push through the contractions. And now you're slowing down your labor again. Your baby's heartbeat is going up and down. It's like a little rave inside your uterus. And the doctor comes in saying, you're not progressing enough. The baby's heartbeat is erratic. All the shit we made you do has made everything worse. Why would you make us do all that shit to you? And that brings us to the biggest medical intervention of all, C-sections. Americans have them at an alarmingly high rate, and it doesn't always have to do with the health of the mother or the baby.
An alarming number. 1 in 3 women giving birth in America today
This
having a
is
C-section. But too
ridiculous.
often, C-sections are not needed.
Sometimes doctors or hospitals may rush a C-section simply because they think labor has gone on long enough,
That
or
was me.
because the maternity ward is especially busy.
Another reason for the major increase, just for the sake of convenience.
Doctors are rushed. I mean, when someone's giving birth
Yeah.
vaginally, it can take a long time. They're in labor, it can take days. C-section, very quick. You're in and you're out. C-sections are major surgery and they carry all the risks of surgery.
So here's what happened.
Isn't that crazy? How do we feel?
You know, this is a clip from that I've seen from Comedy Central and it's funny but it's not funny because it's
Mhm.
so accurate. It's scary accurate actually. Um I have so many thoughts.
Yeah, give them to me. I love it.
This is something, especially because I teach in my childbirth education classes. My education classes are meant, listen, there's a lot of fear around birth. That
Absolutely.
is like, it's passed down, passed down. But what people have to understand is that the majority of the time, it is not like, it is nothing like in the movies or
No.
the shows. Like anyone who's making a movie or filming a TV show, hire me as your consultant. I will tell you how to make a
Yeah.
real scene that isn't scary. Also, we hear all these stories about like my sister's cousin had a horrific birth. It's fear is passed down, passed down, passed down. So the point is, I tell every expecting family, you must take a childbirth education class.
Absolutely.
Educate yourself on your options, your choices. Everything that you need to know is in a class, and these are tools in your toolbox. if you have the tools in your toolbox, you can make decisions so that you don't end up like that clip, honestly.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is we're seeing a rise in inductions across the country. Many are not medically necessary,
Hmm.
which also then increases other interventions, other rates of cesarean section now go up. We have the highest rate of cesarean section in this country, which should not be happening.
Yeah.
One of the other things is, they in the clip they're like, "You're not moving along fast enough. Like we have to do X, Y, and Z." There's also things that people don't know about in the industry relative to policies. And when we see policies that are implemented, change that should happen doesn't happen for quite some time. For example, the way that they monitor how someone is progressing in labor and where they should be at a certain amount of time in labor. If they're not, they're deemed a failure to progress, is the
Yeah.
language. Um, what people don't know is that this system was based on a study done in 1955 by a man who did a study on 500 white women. And then this curve, like of how you should be laboring, was implemented. And if you didn't follow this curve of progression, then you would end up in a C section, most likely. That didn't change until 2014.
Really?
It wasn't implemented in change by ACOG, who was the governing body,
Yep.
until 2014. And now they said, oh, actually, not every body that's in labor looks the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Like everyone's different.
Yeah.
While the anatomy and physiology is the same, but not every person is going to progress at the same amount of time.
So you would say like different races. Like it's different.
Of course. I mean, does everyone having a baby look like 500 white women? No,
No.
not at all.
No.
So, these are the things like when policies are implemented that impact someone having a baby in a hospital setting, sometimes change isn't until much later.
Yeah.
And people don't even know about this. That's why you have to have a doula. Your doula is, I'm going to empower you to be educated, but also empower you to advocate for yourself. Like, how empowering is that for you to be able to say in a room, if they're saying, for example, things have slowed down, we've got to use Pitocin. Pitocin is a medication that is a synthetic form of the hormone oxytocin that is naturally released from our brain. But if you can say, hold on, let me use my brain, the acronym, and find an alternative to release the hormone from the brain, then we'll see a progression in a way that is not going to lead to all these other interventions. Like, take a class, get a doula, get a good doula who is familiar with where you're delivering, a doula who is very educated about your options, and also a doula who's not going to come in there and piss the staff off.
Yeah.
Like,
That's huge.
do you think I agree with every single provider that's in the space? No, but I can't be the person in the room being a rebel rouser because I'm going to get kicked out of the room and that's not going to be good for the family. We can't be doing that.
But how do you deal with a situation where a client, like let's use this for example because it's a hot topic.
Yeah.
Client doesn't want the erythromycin on the eyes, doesn't want the Hep B vac or the vitamin K.
Yeah.
First round of shots, right when the baby comes out, they
Yeah.
don't want them.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, no, we're doing them. How do you, as the doula, advocate for the patient? Because I feel like sometimes the moms, and this happened to me with my last birth that I just did,
Yeah.
felt pressured by the staff, pressured by the
100%.
nurses. So
Yeah.
when she was like, okay, just do it, like even though her and I had spoken prior to that, like how do you overcome that?
Yeah.
Because now you're essentially fighting the staff.
Yeah. I think it's really important to, like you said, like you're going to meet with, as a doula, you're going to meet with the family ahead of time. You've got to prep them. The things that you're talking about, these are called, for anyone listening, they're called newborn procedures that are typically done. This is the checklist of what's done when the baby's born. But this is your option as a family to say yes or no to some or all of the things. That is your choice. You get to make that decision. And here's the thing, a lot of hospitals will say, well, that's what we have to do. But what families need to know is that that's your choice. Whether you should do them is the choice you make for your family. And the only person that can make that is you. So having good prep work ahead of time, but not only that, having a written birth plan, the phrase is birth plan. I like to call it birth preferences or
I
your
agree.
wishes, because you can't plan for birth, but that's the phrase that everybody knows. Put it on there. And right when the baby's being born, a lot of times I'll say to the nurse, oh, those are the newborn procedures that they want, just as a reminder. And I'll point to the birth plan that I put right at the computer. And then that way the nurse is like, oh, okay, yeah, you don't want the X, Y, and Z, but it's the family's choice.
Yeah.
You
Because
don't have to do it,
I think that people,
or you can do it. It's fine, whatever
yeah,
you want.
they can, whether they do it or not, I think that it's not known that they have the choice.
Yeah, it's not known. It's like I heard from a client recently who said they're hiring us for their second baby. And they said to me, the first time we just did what the doctor and the nurses said
Yeah.
because they were like, well, it's the doctors and the nurses that are saying it. So we should, quote unquote, do
Do
it.
it.
But again, empower yourself to get the education and get the evidence based information
Absolutely.
so that you get to say, actually, no, I don't want that. And that is it.
Well, I also think now with social media, a lot of things are coming to fruition where it's like there is financial incentive for these hospitals to give these
For
medications.
sure.
And there isn't actually a lot of data. I mean, for
Right.
example, like the Hep B vaccine, you only can get hepatitis B from sexual intercourse or a dirty needle. I'm sorry, but your newborn baby, I really just don't understand like how that's going to contract from that point, you
Yeah,
know? So I understand, and like where I stand. I'm kind of just
of
like
course. Yeah.
people had babies in fields and did
Yeah.
perfectly fine. So like what the fuck
And
are
then
we
they went
doing?
back to work after they
Yeah,
had baby.
yeah. Baby's just chilling in the field for a little
Yeah, and
while.
they're like, doo doo doo.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I mean like my grandparents were born at home. Like they didn't
Yeah,
have any of that shit.
right,
And they're fine. They're 97 still kicking in my house driving me
right.
crazy. But like
Yeah, the majority of the
I
population was born at home. And look, listen, thank goodness for modern medicine
yeah.
because a lot of, people died when they were having their babies.
Yeah, the
But,
risk of mortality is like
right.
a lot lower.
But here's the thing with that in this country, our rate of infant and maternal mortality rate is disgusting. Like,
How high are we? Like one of the highest
we're
right
one
now?
of the highest. Yeah, unfortunately. And can I swear?
Yeah.
And that's bullshit.
Yeah.
You'll hear me say bad words when I get passionate about something. That's bullshit. That shouldn't be happening. I've had clients, especially women of color, that will hire me. And when I say, tell me why you're thinking about having a doula, they will look at me and say, because I don't want to die in labor and birth.
So is it more popular in like a woman of color than of white women? I don't know. I'm asking. I actually don't
Yeah,
know.
it's higher in people of color, but we also are seeing, I mean, just women in general should not be dying when they're having a baby.
Is it because of lack of like
Well, they're not being heard. They're not being taken seriously when they say certain things like, I don't feel well. Or, I had a client once who was not feeling great and they had us for labor support and postpartum. She wasn't feeling great
yeah.
on the postpartum side. She had some bleeding going on. And so she called us doulas, of course. And we went over some things. I asked her some questions. And then I said, you know what? Why don't you give the provider a call and just let them know and ask to be seen? And so she was like, okay, great. This was a woman of color. And she called me back and said, well, the nurse was kind of like, well, you just had a baby. It's normal to bleed. But what she was describing to me didn't seem in the realm of norm. Now, again, I'm non medical, but I do know what we tend to see in normal postpartum
Yeah.
recovery.
I mean, you've done enough.
And this did not seem normal to me. So I wanted to be safe than sorry. So she was really dismissed. And I said, you're going to call back and you're going to ask to talk to someone else. And you're going to tell them, no, I need you to make an appointment for me today. And again, here's the thing I say to women that are like, you know your body. You
Yeah.
know your body the best. If you tell me, no matter what color you are, I don't feel right, well, then you don't feel right for a reason. So we got to check that out. So she called back and basically I gave her the language to use. She was seen and she had retained placenta,
Oh
which is dangerous and she could have hemorrhaged to death. So
my God.
this is the thing,
That's
like,
so scary.
there's so much going on in the birth world. It's like, not only do people not understand that they have choices, but what we also need to understand is that, like, people are dying Why is that happening in this
I
country?
feel like it's 2024.
It's
Like
ridiculous.
it doesn't make any sense. And I can see how you get pushed aside. Like, for
100%.
example, for myself, like I had my C-section with Sophia and I had a ton of fluid. Like I was just
Mm.
literally all water weight.
Yeah.
And I said to them, I said, with my experience of being within from plastic surgery for years, I
Mhm.
was like, listen, I go, you really need to put a drain in this. And they're like, that's not common practice. I'm like, I understand it's not common practice, but like I have so much fluid on board, like
Yeah.
it's going to come out the least point of resistance. They go,
Yeah.
no, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, but I do. And they
Right.
go, nope, nope, nope. My C-section was open for like 8.5 weeks, leaking.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I was wearing maxi pads, like those old Granny Depends pads on the
No.
front of my stomach because I would just be like, it would be clear fluid. So when I went in, this one particular OB, and you know who she is, I'll tell you
Mhm.
after.
Mhm.
Um, Dr. C, we'll call her.
Mhm.
And she was like, well, we need to probe it to see how deep it is. When they probe your C-section,
Oof.
just to tell you how that works, they lay you down, there's no numbing involved, and they take a long ass Q-tip and they shove it inside your C-section and go like this to see how deep it is and see like what's open. And
What?
I was like, what? She goes, oh, I'll give you a couple Vicodin so next time you come in. And I go, what?
Oh my
So
goodness.
mind you, I'm still like, now I'm bleeding because now it's
Right.
like open.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, like, are we, thank God, like, you know, my mom's a nurse. Like, I've been in the medical field a
Yeah.
long time. Like, wound care is something I'm very familiar
Right.
with. But for the women that don't
But
have that
normal people having
experience,
a
like,
baby don't have your experience or
exactly, like, you
education.
could have a serious infection. And I'm sorry, like, there's not, I mean, you're 7 layers to get to your uterus. I'm pretty sure like a serious infection could
Yeah.
ensue and you could be in some serious problems
Of
here.
course. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I was really like, listen, like you need to listen to me.
Yeah.
And they refused to do it. And it took
Mm.
so long for that to heal. And I still have to this day, 2 years to almost 2.5 years later, like severe sensitivity. So like I
Wow.
can't wear certain pants. Like I
Yeah.
can't like, I mean, I would put things over it anyway. But
Yeah.
like, you know, like low rise jeans. Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Not that, I mean, I feel like after you have a baby, no one wears low rise jeans anymore unless like you're one of those genetically good people that like don't have a pouch after a baby, but like whatever. Um, but like that's something that people don't know. Like
Yeah.
the care with that, like you could easily die from an infection from
Right.
that. Like,
I mean, here's the thing. Again, things have changed, right? So when we were having babies a long time ago, you were in the hospital longer days.
yeah,
You were not in the hospital for 2 days for a vaginal birth. 3 days, they're really kicking you out a C-section now. It should be like 3 to 5.
I signed and left early.
Well, of course you did
I was like,
because
get
you're
me the
you.
fuck out
Yeah.
of here. Fucking idiots.
But we're seeing shorter stays in the hospital after. And and here's the other thing. In other countries and cultures,
Mm.
when you have a baby, you have so much support. You have like a visiting nurse, a
Like
midwife who
Japan,
checks on you.
Italy.
Yeah, everyone takes care of you. And in their culture, it is common practice for you have a baby and you stay in bed for 30, 40
40
days.
days.
Everyone, some cultures are 30, some are 40, but you are just tended to. The food is brought to you so you
Mhm.
can heal. And here in this country, you have a baby. When do you see your provider? 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
What? So
Yeah.
much is happening in the body, emotionally, like
And
physically.
I think that's also why we are leading in postpartum depression.
Of course we are.
Because these
100%.
people are having, these women are having kids and it's like no
Hmm.
support. So
Zero.
and what really pisses me off with the whole postpartum is that it's very much, you do have a window that you can really help that mom right away
That's
so
right.
she doesn't get to that point.
Correct. Yes.
And I think that since we're just so lax, like, oh, it's fine. And most of these moms, they're going back to work in 12 weeks.
100%. They're going, some of them are going back to work sooner than that.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not stopping working. So I
No.
don't think we have, there's really no, I think the US is a poor excuse, truthfully,
Right.
for like the care that we could have.
Yeah.
But I also think like waiting so long, it's like a recipe for disaster.
Of course it is. 6 weeks postpartum, a lot of shit is going on.
Yeah.
You, I mean, the first couple of weeks are, and this is a beautiful thing about having a postpartum doula, we're trained to recognize signs and symptoms of PMADs, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. So if you've got something brewing, it's happening soon when you get home,
Yeah.
not 6 weeks later.
No, it's happening like the day you have
By
a baby.
then, something serious is going on. And so, why are we not checking on our postpartum families, first of
Mhm.
all? And second of all, that is one of the things why I'm so passionate about postpartum support, because I really struggled. I had severe postpartum OCD, intrusive thoughts. I was not okay. And again, like anyone who's pregnant, this is not to scare you. This is to have a
But it's the
conversation.
truth.
This is a conversation so that you understand, like, I'm going to be going through ups and downs, ups and downs. There's this whole wave of hormones that are happening. The placenta houses all of this incredible increase in hormones. Like, your body's so awesome. It grows an organ to sustain life.
Yeah.
What? But then it says, hey, I don't need this organ I grew, and it gets rid of it. But then all your hormones come out of your body at the same time.
Yeah.
People are not talking about this. People are not talking about real conversations on how we are feeling postpartum, and that's why I'm so open about it. That's why I run a free new moms group that anyone can come to. You don't have to be a client. It's for community and support.
Mhm.
And this is so important. My mom's group saved me, because to sit in a group and to look at someone and listen to their story, and then you say, oh my God, I'm not the only one who's feeling this way.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not going crazy. Like,
Yeah. It validates how you feel.
of
And I
course.
think that women now, I think a lot of women are scared to talk about how they feel.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
only time you ever hear about postpartum depression is when it goes like off the
When it's
rails. And
on the
when it's on the
news,
news, like
correct.
recently, we live in
Yes.
Massachusetts. We had a mom that
Yes.
unfortunately killed 3 of her children,
Mhm.
tried to take her own life.
Yeah.
She did not succeed. She's
Right.
in a hospital right now. And she's actually someone you worked with.
Yes. Yes. And this is the reason why a lot of families are learning about postpartum, because of this, this
Awful event.
tragedy
Yeah.
that was on the news. But here's the thing. I always say the reason that we suffer in silence, honestly, is because when we have a baby, we have all these ups and downs. We're like crying, and we have a conversation in our head. Like, for me, my youngest is an IVF baby. I worked so hard to get her,
Mhm.
8th try medically to conceive. Thank goodness for modern medicine. She's here. But in the moment, I was suffering. And I was like, you can't tell anyone, because Mara, you should be so happy that you had this beautiful baby. So I just suffered in silence. And I was like in a deeper category than just what's called the baby blues, which is typical. It's about 80%
Yeah.
that will experience the baby blues, and they typically go away. They should go away by 3 weeks. If they last longer than 3 weeks, call your provider, reach out for some additional support. But I was suffering, and I was like, I can't tell anyone, because they'll think I'm like the story on the news, the story on that
Yeah, because they're
documentary.
scared that you're gonna get locked up and lose your kids or shoved on medication. The thing
Right.
is that all these women, and I see it all the
Yeah.
time here, is that they say that they're anxious, and the first thing they get is a Xanax or a prescription. And
Right.
truthfully, there is amazing, amazing data that shows the correlation about the food that you eat postpartum and your mental state.
Of
There's a
course.
ton of data on that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that portion is being spoken about. I
It's
think
not.
it's all about, hey,
That's not where the money
here's a
is.
pill. Exactly. And that pisses me off. But like,
Yeah.
you can't get upset. I mean, truthfully, in the case that we were just mentioning, that
Yeah.
woman was on multiple drugs. I
Yeah.
think that truthfully, if it was in my way, I think the physicians that were her doctors are equally as guilty of
Yeah.
that crime as she is,
Yeah.
because there was a clear pattern that this woman needed help.
But she was also asking many people for help as well.
Yeah.
Like, people knew that she needed help. Here's the thing. Again, we don't do enough for our postpartum families. Someone who has a baby, here's your baby. Good luck with that. It's like, this is one of the big reasons why I am such a big proponent of support in general when you're having a baby, expecting, and when you bring the baby home. Because the reason people suffer in silence is because they think, if I tell someone, they're going to think like I'm the person on the news. But here's the thing. The stories we hear on the news they're not using the right language. So they're like, that woman jumped off a 10th story building with her baby. She suffered from postpartum depression. No, she suffered from postpartum psychosis, which is a smaller percentage. But then you've got the mom who's sitting at home who just had her baby, who's a week in and crying and thinking like, I'm not okay, or angry at her baby. She's like, I can't tell anyone because they're going to think like I'm the person on TV. But you're in a different category. You're in a realm of normal postpartum period. We have to talk about this more. We have to make it a conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that this is something your providers should be doing. But again, they don't get paid on outcomes. So having a doula is crucial to a lot of these people. And if you can't
100%.
afford a doula, find a group. I mean, we're going to link all Mari's stuff with her free moms group here. But I mean, it, it's this information is available to you.
It's available to you. There's resources for you. The other great thing about having a doula is like we have a list of references and referrals for therapists who specialize in
Yeah.
perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. We have other groups that are specialized in this that we can refer you to. Like it takes a village. When they say it takes a village,
It
it
did.
does. It needs to be a conversation where someone is like, okay, I can openly speak about this and not feel judged or like someone's going to take my baby.
I can't like, and I think that the intrusive thoughts everyone goes through.
Yeah,
I don't think that's like a new
right.
thing. I think that people are just like, oh, it's normal that I felt that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I had a client the other day that her baby has colic really bad.
Mm,
And he just cries and cries
ugh,
and cries.
yeah.
And she's like, Alexis, I just put him in the car to drive with him. And she's like, I know this sounds awful, but like the guardrail looked really good. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's not gonna, I go, I understand
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying. And
Yeah.
obviously I'm not like reporting
Yeah,
you.
you can't judge her for
I'm not
her
sure,
telling her.
but I also understand like hearing a baby scream for 24 hours straight, like it would make anyone
anyone
go
mad.
mad.
Correct.
Like, I mean, I would challenge someone for me to put it on full blast,
Yeah.
sit in a room for 48 hours, 24 hours, and see how you feel.
Yeah.
You don't sleep, you don't eat,
Right.
you're
You're not
trying everything.
functioning.
You're not functioning.
Yeah.
So like when she said that to me, I said, hey, listen, like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What can we do?
Yeah.
Like, let me talk to you. And her husband's so nice. He was like doing overnights for work, so like he couldn't be there. I was like, I think you need to take some time off. Like we
Yeah.
need to figure this out because
Yeah.
she's not okay.
Right.
And we need to fix that. And he was so open to it. But without that conversation,
That's right.
something negative could have happened.
That's right.
You know? So like
That's right.
it may not be the solution, what we came up with be the solution to the problem, but maybe it was a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
And
To normalize that conversation.
yeah.
And this is a big thing I say in my childbirth classes. And when they come in and they have a partner, I'm like, hey, partners, you're at the forefront of this.
Yeah.
And I tell them all, if something is like off or seems like that's not like her normal quote unquote self, give me a call.
Yeah. Call
Whether
me.
you're my client or not, like give me a call. I will walk you through it. We'll talk about it.
I would so be, and I say this to all my moms that come to me for ultrasound, like you have 24/7 access, like call me
Yeah.
if you need me. You
You're
know what I
such a
mean?
good resource for people. Yeah.
When I had a mom, multiple IVF like
Mhm.
times. I think this is
Yeah.
her like eighth, ninth, something crazy. Like it's a long time.
It's a lot.
She's finally pregnant. She had spotting. She's like
Mhm.
16, 17 weeks, petrified, 4
Of
a.m.
course.
Calls my phone.
Oh.
I was like, hey, what's up? She goes, I've had spotting. I already called the provider. They
Yeah.
told me not to worry. They told me not to come in. And I was like, are you sure? Like,
Right.
you shouldn't be. And like, she sent me a picture. So I knew what was,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't love that. Like,
Right.
send
Let's
me
get
the
that checked
picture. Like,
out.
I
Yeah.
want to know. And she was like, Alexis, if I go to the ER, I'm going to be there for 5 hours. Like, do you think I can come in and just hear the baby's heartbeat?
Yeah.
Give me some reassurance so I know what I'm walking into. Because I
Right.
would much rather find out that maybe this isn't working with you than in a hospital waiting for 5 hours because no one's going to talk to me for
Yeah.
5
You're
hours.
going to be by yourself in a
And the
room
baby
somewhere.
heartbeat was fine, but like we
Mhm.
still sent her to the ER just to
Of
make sure. But
course.
she went into it not freaking out.
Right.
You know, she went into it being like, okay,
Yeah.
this sucks. I don't know what's going on. But like the heartbeat, we're at a 150, we're
Oh,
rocking.
love it.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like we're okay.
Exactly.
And I think that gave her some peace of mind. But if I had it the other way, yeah. And I
Yeah.
hate that conversation because that's how I found out was through an ultrasound.
Yeah.
I think
Ugh.
that we don't talk about miscarriage enough either.
Oh,
I
that's
think that
right.
there's no support groups for miscarriages.
No.
There should be.
Mm-mm.
And I think there should be groups for women who decide to abort too, for whatever reason it
Yeah.
may be, because it could be health, it could be, you know, whatever.
Everyone needs support. in all of these categories. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I would never shut my phone off. Like if someone called
Yeah.
Bloom's line and was like, I'm not your client, but I'm going through this, I'd be like, okay.
And thank God for you. Like,
And I feel like you would do the same. If
I do
someone
the same.
called you,
My
you'd
phone
be
is
like,
never off. It's literally on.
yeah.
It sits at the top of my headboard. I'm
Like-
sorry to my husband,
Poor husband.
Jeff.
Poor
And so-
Jeff.
I mean, 25 years. He's used to it by now. But poor Jeffrey. It's like,
But he's so good. He's so supportive.
I mean, I need my support. He's my doula in everyday life and business and everything.
yeah, he just helped us with a huge debacle.
Yes, he really did. Like,
I guess that's what we can call it.
yeah, let's call it that. But thank goodness, like, because if I didn't have the support, I
Yeah.
mean, I've been doing this work since my youngest was a tiny human. She's
Yeah.
12 and a half. I've been doing this 11 and a half years.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I did that, to leave my little tiny human in the middle of the night to go to a birth. Like, my best friend, shout out to my bestie, Meg, love you. She literally, Megan Scafati, would like come over, like, oh, you need me to come over at night in the middle of the night to like take care of your kids so you can go to a birth?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. And she would do it. Like,
And how did you deal with the guilt of that? Because didn't you feel guilty? I think a
Oh.
lot of women feel so guilty. And
I
they don't know how
mean,
to process
I'm a
it.
mom. I feel guilty all the time about all the things. Like,
yeah.
we have this mom guilt that's so hardcore and it's so bullshit at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, listen, we do the best we can, and you're doing a great job, moms that are listening. If you haven't been told today, you're kicking ass, you're kicking ass.
Yeah.
Alexis, shout out to you.
Yeah. Shout out to Mary.
Shout out
are
to
you
me.
kidding? This was such a good conversation, and I'm so excited. I hope you come back.
I hope you invite me back. This
Oh
is
my God,
so,
anytime.
I want to come out and hang out all the time. We can talk about all the things.
I know. Maybe we'll do like a separate video on like support stuff.
I
Like
love
specific.
it. So
That
many
way-
categories we could do.
So where can people follow you? What's your handles and
Yeah.
everything?
So people can follow me. If you're on Instagram, you can follow me at The Boston Doula. And then my business is Boston Birth Associates. Send me a message. Ask me the questions. I'm here for
And
you.
what is your free moms group?
So right now it's bi-weekly. So it's on Wednesdays. You can go to our website, bostonbirthassociates.com. It'll say register here for the free group, and then we'll send you the link.
Oh,
And
awesome.
it's a great layer of community and support. Anyone who comes to the group, we have an additional group chat that is 24/7. There's so many
Mhm.
amazing moms. So if someone's up at 2 a.m.,
Someone's there for you.
Someone's there for you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Everyone watching, please follow us at Real Aesthetic Pod on Instagram, on YouTube, and Spotify, where you watch all your stuff. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next week.
Next station, Norfolk. Interchange station, Winterland.